Hi, I'm sommelier Holly Wilcox from Gourmet Off Licence and Wine Bar Half Cup Market.
And I'm Mike Davies, chef and owner of the Camberwell Arms Frank's Cafe, Mike's Pizza in Peckham. And welcome to Drink Along from Wine Unpacked.
On Drink Along, every month we invite a new guest to drink along with us. We'll ask them to pick 3 of their favourite wines, talk to us about why they love them, and tell us the stories of how they discovered them.
We give them 3 of our own wine recommendations that we think our guests will enjoy.
We learn a little bit about all of the wines.
Tell you what foods you can pair with them and how, when and where to best enjoy them.
But the best part of all is that you get to drink along from home with 6 glasses of the delicious wines you're seeing on screen. This means that you can find out more about the wines while enjoying them and increase your wine knowledge while having a good time. This month we're drinking along with Hannah Crosbie, wine writer and host of 2 incredible podcasts. Her own podcast, Acquired Tastes, about restaurants, bars and the people who love them, and wine merchant Berry Brothers' new podcast, Drinking Well.
She also set up Dalston Wine Club, a wine club for the new generation of wine drinkers that hosts events around London for people to meet fellow wine lovers and drink incredible wines.
Today, Hannah is going to be telling us about 3 of her favourite wines. We'll be giving her 3 of our own choices, and you at home will be able to try them all and decide which ones you love and which ones aren't your cup of tea. So, Hannah, welcome to Drink Along with Wine Unpacked. Let's start at the beginning. How did you get into wine in the first place?
So I suppose I got into wine the same way that a lot of people get into wine, through hospitality. So I had my first fine dining restaurant job when I was 17 years old. I was serving wine, semi-illegally, but it's fine. We won't delve too much into that. But we started off just serving really rudimentary wine pairings, like steak with rioja. But it kind of got the grey matter going, and it made me realise that wine and food aren't 2 things that should be out of context with each other. I always fell in love with the idea and the relationship of food and wine together. And then the interest in wine lay dormant for quite some time, but it would kind of pop up in really random ways, like always being the person to buy a bottle of wine on the date, no questions asked. Always being the person to bring a nice bottle of wine to Pries. And it wasn't until I got my qualifications that I kind of realized that I could make a go of it. And at the time, there weren't very many young people in the industry, but now, thankfully, I'm part of such an amazing, tight-knit community of sommeliers and restaurateurs and writers. And I just feel like we're kind of at the crest of this amazing wave that's just going to keep on going.
Amazing. How did you find ordering wine on dates? I always find when I'm out for dinner with my partner, I'll order the wine, I'll do all of the moves, and no matter what, they will always present the wine to him. Hi!
The person that actually ordered the wine. So I'd always be the person who ordered wine on dates because I always seem like I have my shit together. But some of the comments that you get on wine choices, I remember I ordered a bottle of really nice Prosecco, good Prosecco, not Tesco's own, which to be fair, I used to drink quite a lot of. But there was I remember there was this is such a rant. I remember there was a guy and he was girls you shouldn't drink Prosecco, they should be drinking champagne. I was that's an interesting view that we're not going to dig too much into here. But the worst thing was that he didn't say Prosecco, he said Prosecco, and I was no. Oh God. But I think that it's a good way to establish your dominance on a date is to order the wine. But then you're kind of a bit undermined when, you say, the somm comes over to you and presents the guy.
Well, shall we have some wine?
Let's do it. I've got 3 amazing wines that we've got from a producer that we both, not a producer, an importer that we both actually love, and you went to visit recently.
Yeah, they're just around the corner from me. I love Emile Wines. I think Rebecca and Ellie are doing such amazing things, and they bring in so much great wine. All right, so wine number 1. I'll keep pours a little bit measured, but
to start off with,
there's more in the bottle, so we can always move backwards. There you go.
Revisiting encouraged, I'd say.
Shall we
cheers.
Start with a
so I think we should cheers. Nice to...
Glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So, do you want to walk us through why you've picked this guy?
Yeah, so I thought that because Emile Wines is such a great way to introduce you to Burgundy, if you've never even ventured into the region before, where better to start than the 3 kind of principal grape varieties. But Aligoté is a bit of a bastard child of Burgundy. Like Chardonnay is obviously like the hero grape variety, but I think that some Aligoté like really, really punches above its weight. Yeah, it's kind of like matching, if not exceeding, like the expectations that you have from Chardonnay at like a similar level. But yeah, this is actually the first one I ever had when I went to go and visit Emile Wines. So it feels like a lovely full circle moment. Nice. But yeah, 100% Aligoté. I believe it's from one of the côtes.
It's the Côte de Nuit, no?
Yes.
And this is from Domaine Henri Naudin-Ferrand. But I believe actually if that's the name of the father, and his daughter Claire now runs the estate.
Woman winemaker.
So yeah, I mean, the grape variety Aligoté I've always found really fascinating, and I love the idea that like people didn't see it was fit to be grown in this amazing place that is Burgundy, and it got kind of kicked out and eschewed, and now I think producers are really bringing it back and focusing on it and using kind of similar winemaking or different winemaking and making some really kind of fun stuff. And this is a really good example of it.
They're really costing on to the potential that Aligoté has.
I always think a really good Aligoté should kind of taste a bit like a vodka martini. Should just be, it's like, it has a weight to it, it has a viscosity, but at the same time, the flavors are really neutral. It's never like overtly fruity. It just has this kind of salty, lean, mineral feel.
Yeah, so that's interesting, because I was sort of thinking about oysters and the kind of the smell of opening oysters, because it's like that kind of briny, but also like when you chip a bit of shell and you get this kind of like burst of ozone. It's it's a nice thing.
Spot on.
It's nice though, right? So the length of it is a bit like that.
I don't really know much about wine. Yeah. And then you come up with like the nicest tasting note. Yeah.
I've been researching this for days.
But yeah, the tasting notes that Becca and Els were telling me, like when we first tasted this one, they kind of mentioned like this really nice, kind of almost like singed caramelized marshmallow.
Oh, I see that.
Do you see what I mean?
Definitely.
And that's always stuck with me.
I just feel like I need to just, back up my thoughts about oysters. But I know what you mean about that kind of like sugar gone slightly too far. Basically like the beginnings of smoke, but in a good way.
Oh.
But yeah, I really love it. So traditionally it was what you would use in a kir. Was always, so you've got your Kir Royale, which is champagne with cassis, and a straight Kir is Aligoté and cassis.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Terrific drink at the bar at St. John, something that you can still get there and have their kind of house white. Have you ever, that's like probably, have you been to the bar at St. John? You must have been. In Smithfield.
Yeah, but I'm always drinking Guinness.
Yeah, okay, sure. But I used to go with John, my old head chef used to work there years ago, and that was the kind of thing so when I went, I just did exactly what he did so I could seem cool, including drinking loads of Fernet Branca, which has kind of stayed with me. But having a Kir and a Welsh rarebit is a nice thing.
Oh, I'm really hungry now. All this talk of oysters and rarebit. Oh.
You got any on the St. John note? You got any favourite London restaurants?
Oh, I mean, like I think it's like asking to choose your favourite child, isn't it? Like, I visited Bruto recently because
I want to go.
I believed the hype, and the hype was real. It was so fucking good.
That's nice to hear.
It was really good. Yeah, because usually you go somewhere and you're like,
sort of,
oh, this is the restaurant London's been waiting for, and you're like, I could have waited a bit longer. Like this is like, yeah. But Bruto like seriously lived up to the hype. It was so good, like so unfussy, like so like an amazing like Italian wine list. Obviously, just like focusing on Italian wine, like some really affordable bottles as well. But the pasta was just out of this world. It was so fucking
It's nice
good.
to hear, because I feel like the best food you have in Italy is completely unfussy.
Yeah,
and I mean
100%.
And I think it's always a celebration of ingredients, and so in that vein, it is not overdeveloped by default, because the ingredients have to be as they are in order to be like the best example of themselves. So yeah, that's exciting. I want to go now.
Yeah. Go, 100%.
I've been tossing up Bruto Manteca.
Have you been to Manteca?
Well,
it's so good.
Since they've got the new site.
The new site is very good.
But it feels like because they're both nice Italian places, I'm like, but I shouldn't have to choose. I'll just go to both.
Yeah.
I think you probably can. Yeah. I think that's fine. He's absolutely nailed his menu, I reckon.
Yeah.
I think like in terms of a hero dish, you can't get better than the brown crab, whatever it is.
Oh no, you can't.
I think most things with brown crab extremely delicious. Speaking of like the flavour of shell, I think that's a kind of good jump off for this. Yeah, it probably would. Do you know that the brown crab meat is just waiting to become shell because they're an exoskeleton, so they're like growing inward to outwards.
Really?
So the brown crab meat is essentially like slowly calcifying bone.
Oh, wow.
Before it becomes the bone, it's this like kind of like mulchy, muddy, buttery type business, which is, in my opinion, the best part.
The best crab.
But yeah, as it kind of extends outwards, it starts to calcify and become the shell, and the shell is kind of gradually shed. So that's why you can make such delicious soup with the bones, because it contains all of the flavor compounds, all of the essential oils and all of that. So if you make a beef, you know, you're going to be roasting the bones. Do you, I take it you're both, you're looking at me in like,
I'm like, wow.
yeah, but like as in, so you're both,
yes, tell me more.
you're both crab people. You like crab.
I don't know.
Crab people. Is that okay?
I'm not a crab person, but I love
You're not a
food
crab
facts.
person. Okay.
I don't
Also, I
eat
did
any
this when I did
fish.
it as well, like a little
Crab.
crab
Little
people.
pincers, crab. Whenever anyone asks me like what my favorite cuisine is, I'm like, I don't have like a favorite cuisine, but I love seafood from like every single cuisine that there is, because like, oh god, it's just always the thing I go to on a menu.
In terms of like natural flavour,
Yeah.
it's pretty like it's the top. For
It
me.
spends its whole life
That and good
marinating.
tomatoes. Yeah, sure, in a brine bath.
It spent its whole life in a brine bath before it
arriving at your table
arrives
ready
in your
brined.
mouth. Yeah, exactly.
That's the big idea for the sea, by the way. That's the advertising. That's the slogan.
Well, how about another
think we're
wine?
ready.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think we should.
So we've gone for another of the Emile wines. Amazing. But I've got the Guasso Saint-Brie.
I love Domaine Croissant so much, you don't even know.
Have you tried this one?
I've tried all of them. I am just so fucking in love with this producer. Oh my days, thank you so much. What a treat.
Fucking nailed it. Look
Fucking
at that.
hell, look at that.
That is,
Don't quit your day job. But yeah, I mean, so Saint-Brie is another one of those weird appellations like Bouzeron, I was saying earlier for Aligoté. Saint-Brie is where you make Sauvignon Blanc. They're also allowed to make Sauvignon Gris, but the majority you'll find is Sauvignon Blanc, so kind of home away from home, from the Loire, where it's more commonly found, which is just around the corner. We're more used to drinking Loire Sauvignon Blancs from Sancerre. It's actually on the same like weird little bit of undersoil or whatever, the Kimmeridgian layer.
I love how you played it down there and then you just went in. You're just like, yeah,
It is what it's
actually,
called.
You know, it's just a little
Comes
thing
from
I like to call the
soil.
Cameroonian layer.
Whatnot. But yeah, I'm personally not much of a Sauvignon Blanc fan.
No, me neither.
Generally speaking.
Me neither.
But I find this really, really appealing. There's definitely this like kind of old rosy, kind of peony.
Not the
Almost like
7.5%
dry
cider
flour.
from the West Country. That's not what you're. No. It's funny though, because I feel like I tried this before and it felt a lot more aromatic, but actually somehow it's changed. I don't think it's super aromatic for me at the moment. But I mean, flavour-wise, I'm kind of enjoying the balance because I think it's got a nice level of acidity and roundness that kind of come together.
One thing I really love about all of their wines, and I find this, with all of the wines that I've tasted, is like you're just hit by this like initial punch of like lip puckering acidity, and then it kind of melts away like that, and you're just left with this like lovely like Cornish buttery mouthfeel. Yeah, creme brulee. Why not? Yeah, it's so lovely.
What would you eat with this?
All I can think about now is creme brulee. I was talking earlier about cheeses and like freshness of cheese and like washed rinds and smell and all of that kind of stuff. But I think this is quite. There's one of the Neal's Yard cellar cheese called Chiddickbury, which is like only produced at a certain point in the year. Goat's milk. It's just matured for like 6 weeks. And much like with grape production, cheese production, you know, goat's milk and salt and rennet. But depending on the land, the grass, the sun, etc., those variables kind of really determine the outcome. And year in, year out, you have these like quite different flavor compounds in the cheese. But it's really just a great expression of like goat's milk. It's kind of like really straight up, and that kind of salty, fresh thing is something that I feel like would be particularly nice with this. Spread on just maybe with a dark flour cracker, like a rye cracker or something. So quite kind of like almost you've got that slightly bitter contrast.
I'm wondering maybe like a bit of a fattier fish. I'm just now on the seafood hype. I just like something like maybe a tab. I don't know. No,
Maybe
I'm
a
just thinking of
turbot.
turbot.
Maybe turbot.
Maybe turbot.
All right, guys, I'll book a table at Bradford after this.
Fine. If that's the result of this conversation, then I'm very up for that. I was going to take this opportunity to ask you about your podcast.
Yeah.
How long have you been producing it for?
Yeah, so I kind of had like this idea of doing a podcast like quite a while ago. My friends like said I had a really nice voice and that maybe it should be something that I should think about doing. And then I mentioned it to my agent and she was like, no, 100% you should do it. So I found an amazing producer who produced one of my friends' podcasts, Kai from My Lady Garden, who's like absolutely amazing. But yeah, and we've only done 6 episodes, but we just like really lucked out with the people that we had. So we had Easter Belfridge, Doug McMaster. Who else do we had? Mandy Yin.
I was listening to your one with Willie's Pies on the way here.
Oh, what will he cook?
Yeah.
He's a funny one. We had such a great time, but the whole idea is that like, yeah, we just have like a wine provided. Basically, the guest beforehand tells me like what kind of wines they like, what kind of wines they don't like, and then from that I'm like, okay, like kind of like in a similar way to what you're doing based off my choices. Like I'll pick a bottle of wine, we drink it, get a little bit drunk, and just chat shit for about an hour. And it's so good. Although Willie's podcast, we spoke for 2.5 hours. So Jacob, my producer, had like a really, really difficult time editing it. But like, you know. So yeah, I think like with the first season, we've had like all of the huge names that we've been able to kind of like establish, like take us seriously. Now I'm just kind of going to go back and just like, ask all my mates to do it. So it's going to be like really nice to hear their stories. But yeah, season 2 coming soon. Yeah.
All right, wine number 3. Another one of your picks, Hannah. We've got a Macon Versé.
Yes.
Want to tell us a little bit about why you picked this guy?
Yeah, so as I was saying, like the next place to go from Malagotta, we're going to go to, thank you, the hero grape of Burgundy, Chardonnay. White Burgundy is 100% Chardonnay. And I just also think that the Mâconnais is just such a great place to go to, like you say, when you're looking for like really good value. White Burgundy, like it's just like so brilliant. I think I tried this one maybe like a couple of months ago in advance because yeah, I'm currently doing a project with Emil Wines right now that involved me tasting quite a lot of wines, but yeah, this one is just absolutely outstanding. Like I just go a bit weak at the knees for White Burgundy, like for exactly all of the reasons that we've just said. What do you think?
I really like it.
Yeah.
I think it's delicious, yeah.
But yeah, completely. Like I think Macon is such a great area. I mean, just to put it into context, like if you wanted to buy vineyard space in Burgundy proper, as it were, up in the Côte de Beaune or whatever, like you can't get that for love or money. Your dad has to die in order for you to inherit the vineyards. Then you do not buy them. They sell for millions of pounds per meter. It's all
really.
I mean, don't quite.
I can believe it. I can believe it. Yeah.
But it's insane. And then there's all this space down on the Macon that has a really similar soil makeup, and it's just a little bit warmer and a little bit less hilly. But there are still loads of really prime spots. I think they've just started. They've given a couple of places some Premier Cru status, which is really nice to see, and the wines are getting a bit more recognition. But I think like historically the area was known for making much more kind of bulk style wines, and just it's as kind of places like the Côte de Beaune have become completely inaccessible, people are moving down there and making really amazing wines.
Yeah.
When you're talking about White Burgundy, what does that actually mean to you?
Chardonnay.
Really good Chardonnay, yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of that's your go-to. That's what you're thinking of.
Yeah.
Just because we're drinking other things from it, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, good White Burgundy is hazelnuts and a little bit of salt and kind of
creamy, delicious texture.
I sort of think of fattiness when I think of White Burgundy, I suppose, and kind of like things like we used to sell a Limoux in the pub, which I kind of think of as that kind of like luxurious kind of can be matched with slightly richer things, quite a sort of treaty, expensive lunch wine, something like that. I don't know. Yeah.
I think you also tend to see quite a bit of oak on them generally, which would give you a kind of vanilla, creamy richness to it. But this guy, I'm pretty sure they age in cement. Cement really kind of keeps the temperature really stable. You know,
Right.
It's big, it's thick, it keeps everything cold. And if you have a colder fermentation temperature, it just takes longer and longer and longer, which for these guys, I mean, I think, done excellent work.
I mean,
that gives you complexity.
I think it's interesting for me because when you allow dough to prove slowly at a lower temperature, you're obviously creating fermentation and making something that will end up being more digestible because for a start, there's more carbon dioxide in the dough, so you're getting lighter, kind of more bubble structure. But you're also getting significantly more flavour and more of the breakdown of the original wheat germ package. But it's quite nice because that kind of the idea of slower, colder temperature work, giving complexity. I'm all about that because I like the kind of variability that comes out at the end. Because you wouldn't necessarily know what you're going to end up with if the time limit is variable.
I think it's a really impressive wine and definitely punches above its weight in terms of price.
Yeah, I think all of these wines do. They're all so reasonable. Absolutely incredible trade prices.
And you've been running Dalston Wine Club for a while now as well, haven't you?
Yeah, for about a year and a half.
How's that been going?
It's been really interesting. I first started Dalston Wine Club, at a really great time, 1 month before the second lockdown. Woo! Dalston Wine Club was kind of brought out of a really kind of it was basically somewhere that I wish that I could have gone to when I first started getting into wine, because when I finally managed to penetrate the industry, I worked as a copywriter for many years, and then I started to work as a copywriter in wine, which was great to combine the two loves of my life and the two things that I'm good at. I would go to trade tastings, and I would be the youngest person there. And I'd be one of the very few women there. I'd be a white woman, there'd be very few POC. And I'd also feel the least fancy person there. And I was what is preventing other young women kind of getting into wine? It's probably to do with money, probably, because unless you are privy to trade tastings or you have the money to open a fuck ton of wines at the same time and critically compare and contrast, or to undertake a WSET qualification, there just aren't those same opportunities. So I was thinking, wouldn't it be great if there was a place that you'd come to with your friends where wine is the focal point of the evening, but it's not the focal point of the conversation. So you just come and it's you're going to a bar, but the 4 wines by the glass that night all have a theme running through them. And then when your glass is empty, some annoying woman comes up and tops up your wine and tells you a little bit about it. So that was the idea behind Dalston Wine Club. And then people have their favorite wines, and some people who've come from day one, they now have their own wine clubs, which is so nice to see. Or they're pursuing careers in wine because they finally have the confidence to. I don't claim to be an expert, but I do really, really, that sounded so, I'm not an expert, but I don't claim to be a wine expert. I've still got so much to learn, and that's one of the things that I love about wine. There's always something new to learn. There's always a new development. There's always a new producer. The climate's changing all the time, as you say. There's always something new. But I just find it so amazing and empowering to kind of have these spaces that young people, especially young women, can come to and just feel relaxed and enough to ask stupid questions, because there's no such thing as a stupid question. But yeah, it's been going for a month and a half, did one in real life, did several under lockdown, and now it's just growing and growing, which is really exciting.
Yeah,
sounds really nice.
Yeah, it sounds like a lovely I completely sympathise. I started working in a wine shop when I was 18.
Yeah.
And my boss used to send me off to all of the big wine tastings, and not to purchase, but go to this, it's useful, you'll learn things.
Yeah.
And I always had to go with a male friend because I felt so intimidated by all of these men in suits. And even now, it's only kind of the last couple of years I felt comfortable being at those things.
Yeah.
And it's
So
terrifying.
do you feel like it's changing?
Oh, completely.
100%. There are more women in the room than ever. But even you have men in suits, but then you kind of go to the natural wine tastings, and it's still a massive boys' club. It's so crazy. But I would agree with you. Things are changing, and even the last year or so, I know that more and more people want to get into wine and opening shops, which is amazing. You've got more of a mix of people there than ever, but there's still so much further to go in terms of diversity, not just in gender, but in race and sexuality and things like that. But yeah, we're headed in the right direction though.
Wine number 4. We're sticking with Chardonnay,
Very nice.
but I've gone a little AWOL in where we've got this from. So this is actually from an estate called Anchor Hill. They're based in Monmouthshire in Wales. And it's kind of as far from the Macon, which is as far south in Burgundy as we go in terms of Chardonnay. Obviously, they do make it a little bit further south as well, but generally a little bit further south than what we'd expect. And this is way up north. So yeah, in the UK, which I tried recently at an English wine tasting I was hosting, and like was so impressed. It comes across as really Chablisian to me.
Almost
That's
got
fresh.
a little bit of sherry on the nose. It's got that slight like oxy.
Yeah. It feels too early in the year to be drinking this.
Yeah, where is the sun?
That is so good. Honestly, I mean, tried it earlier, but just delicious, I think. That's like absolutely my ticket.
I think obviously we're in a colder climate, so I'd expect to see a bit more in terms of acidity, which I think this packs a punch of. But I think as well, in terms of how they've aged it, I think it's old barrels. It adds a little bit of oxidation into the mix, and you get all these layers of flavor, and it has this richness and like, yeah.
Because I'm not gonna lie, I love
into it.
Anchor Hill, but like I kind of was like, okay, like a Wales Chardonnay, like it's gonna be like the attack on the palate, the acidity, the citrus, and you're like, and then that's it.
I really wasn't. Like I'd ordered it for this tasting, and
mad.
I was not expecting anything out of this world, and I was like,
I mean, that is fucking delicious, right?
I think it's so good.
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of, it's interesting because it's got a kind of like length of acidity that doesn't feel overbearing. And I also think there's this kind of mad, slight astringency, like a tiny bit of
Pithiness.
Yeah,
I kind of
exactly,
like felt like it was
slight
like
bitter.
nectarine
Yeah,
pith or something
exactly.
like that. Yeah.
Which I absolutely love because I like the idea of the kind of the fruit aspects of that kind of nicely battling with that slight bitterness. I think it's a good thing.
That's so good. I'm gonna have another sip. I'm gonna have another sip.
I think these guys are. So Anchor Hill makes some really cool wines. Like, not that this isn't cool. I think this is like a really kind of more veering towards a traditional style. But they make some like really wacky stuff as well. I've been drinking their orange wine they make from Albarino.
Yes,
which
I
is
heard about this.
So
Yeah,
weird,
yeah.
but so delicious. And
I really dig their Triomphe Pet Nat, the red Pet Nat. Yeah.
What I think is especially cool about them is they are so keen on their kind of sustainability acts. So their whole winery they build with like it's essentially built around all of these hay bales.
Really?
Yeah, and the density of them and the fact that they're a kind of natural byproduct means that the building of it was more sustainable, but also helps to maintain the temperatures inside the winery, which can obviously fluctuate. You don't want your wine to get too hot. And in addition to that, they also have a whole green roof situation.
Cute.
So
Yeah.
they have a whole like garden up top, which as well, the soil and the greenery up top adds to that kind of element and keeps everything at a really nice stable temperature. So they don't need to use any temperature control in the winery. It's only 10%.
Brilliant. All the better.
We can pour full glasses of this. So interesting, these guys have chosen to use a screw cap, which...
Is it more sustainable?
I don't know. I just think it's interesting more than anything. I think loads of places do see cork. I mean, what do you think? Do you think a wine with a cork exudes more of an expensive air?
I mean, I feel like in common perception, yes. Me personally, I like the easy access.
Yeah.
Like all too often, I don't find myself with a corkscrew. That's a difficult scenario if you need to drink wine. Obviously there are many ways to get a wine bottle open, but ideally, just unscrewing a cap. This is a good arrangement. I sort of think that. I would hope that those things are maybe like an attitude of the past. I don't know. I mean, if it's something that you feel. Being in a position of knowledge, perhaps that's actually the case.
I think screw caps are wicked, man.
Yeah.
You're totally right. It's so much easier to open. I think if I was going to age something for a really long time, I might prefer it to be under cork. But
So that tiny little teensy bit of like
Yeah,
oxygen,
or
tiny bit.
But if I'm going to be drinking it,
Well, it's a bit like bag and box, isn't it? Because bag and box is, has a terrible association with like really cheap, horrible shit. But
I've got a lot of love for bag and box.
Of course, like, but this is a relatively kind of new thing, I would say, in the sense that like it's a perfect environment to keep a lot of things in. I've got some friends that produce olive oil, for instance, and olive oil degrades with light and air, much like a lot of these other things that are produced in like a really kind of like natural way. I mean, much like wine. And actually like bag and box, like putting it in a vacuum is the ideal way of creating and keeping freshness and also like keeping that kind of original quality that you've produced something with. And that's why for me, like with wine, it's such an exciting way to drink wine. But I think of bag and box wine, I think the like public perception of that is like very cheap 5 litre things that you can kind of like maybe go a bit blind on.
I think historically loads of good wine hasn't been put in bag and box, but there's nothing wrong with the actual process. I've started at my new place, Half Cut, where I've started pouring wines by keg, and the amazing thing about that is because it costs so much less to everyone down the line. Like transporting it is less, like the amount of bottles you would have to, the weight of the bottles versus the weight of the keg is so different. It's so much better for the environment. As an operator, there's no wastage. It's not like you open a bottle and then you have to sell it all. Like I just pour it out and it turns up. It's easy peasy.
And it tastes great.
It tastes great.
Yeah.
But it also means that you can lower the prices. So I can sell wine that's really good quality, but for like way less than other people are charging for it because kegs are wicked. Bag and box is wicked. Like
I was in Half Cut the other day, and the kegged wine was absolutely fucking delicious. So amazing. I had the English sparkling that you have on, like just like
from Langham.
Yeah, Red Apple Central. It was so good.
Love it.
It was amazing.
And also, how could I have got through lockdown without the Grappan Bagnums?
Yeah.
Bag and box, but in a Magnum format size. Stick it in the fridge, glass with lunch.
Hook it up to an IV
So
drip. Why not?
That was my introduction to bag and box. I was cooking for a wedding in Provence, and I knew the person who was getting married, and so I was staying in their like beautiful family villa, really near to Henri Moulin's vineyard. I don't know if you've been there, but he's one of the producers that Dynamic Wines import. But anyway. They literally had, I think it was like, I want to say a 20-litre box of rosé in the fridge when I arrived. And I was like cooking from the off, and they were just like, this is just, for everyone. So I was there for a few days before, obviously. And it's just that, but it's like, it's delicious. It's not complex. It's table wine, but it's absolutely, it's like the fuck off box of delicious rosé in the fridge that you can just walk past at any moment.
Yeah.
And just,
it's so unfussy. It's like 6 weeks or something that like a bag and box like lasts.
Yeah,
the plastic.
I've read like 2 months, but to be honest, I've sold out of everything before that.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't been able to test it personally, but I
think it would be difficult to keep something for 2 months if it was nice. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah.
I need to install a little system at home. So wine number 5.
Yeah.
We're moving back to Burgundy.
Yes.
We're back on our trad Burgundy grapes, drinking some Pinot Noir. But I think there's a little bit of a point of difference with this Pinot.
Yeah, so this is kind of not from an area that you traditionally associate with Pinot. So you'd usually associate with like high quality Pinot with like the coat, like really expensive stuff. But this one is from, I believe, Auxerrois, which is like super north, like right by, I'm not really too sure where it's placed around Chablis. Maybe you'll be able to it's around there. But it's like on the same kind of like, been talking quite a lot about like shellfish, oyster crushed soils. Like it's, to all intents and purposes, it is like a red Chablis. Like it is so light. Like Tom was saying earlier, it's like so light and bright and acidic. Like it's kind of like still kind of got like that, obviously, because it's like further north, it's going to be like a little bit more fresh and like a little bit more like cool climate. But this is a really special one.
It's delicious.
Juice.
Yeah, I think that like cooler climate really, I mean, it helps to bolster the acidity, helps keep it bright, but they've got so much body to it as well, and there's a lot going on.
I love the idea of actually pairing this with shellfish.
Yeah.
Like thinking about it, because I think it's interesting.
Oh
because
yeah, talk to
I
me.
do, just because, I mean, obviously we've been talking a lot about that, but I feel like, I don't know, it's not a kind of thing that you would think naturally, but I feel like because it's light and it's got this kind of like fruit characteristic and a nice bit of balance, I think I would like to have it with something with a shell, because you do get all of those kind of beautiful like aromatic compounds from the shells. I mean, like, hate to say it because we've been talking loads about lobster. Sorry, turbot, but I want to talk about lobster because I feel like actually there's a lot of a kind of like lobster is so kind of like so rich and kind of meaty and sweet, or maybe even like really good scallops just roasted in butter, because they've got this incredible sweetness, and I actually think that is so kind of like juice focused, fruit a little bit, and I think that with their kind of like super buttery kind of like rich scallop flesh would be really nice.
And like it's like you say, like there's not like, it's got a structure, but the tannin's almost like powdery at the end, like they're barely there. Yeah. I think
it's really there to kind of just bring it home. I think the tannin, it's not really like a soup. It's not a presence.
It just
kind of very
reminds
subtle.
you you're drinking a red when you finish it.
Yeah. No, that's so true. That's so true.
And this is another Emile number, no?
It is another Emile number, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely legendary importer. But yeah, no, this is such a brilliant Pinot Noir. Like Pinot Noir is like probably my favorite.
The heartbreak grape.
The heartbreak grape.
Why is it the heartbreak grape?
It's just, like impossible to grow. It's so finicky. It doesn't like to be in this place. It doesn't like it when it's too warm. It doesn't like it when it's too cold.
But move it 2 meters in the other direction. It's like, yeah, this is great.
So it's broken the hearts of every farmer that has ever tried to grow it. Every poor winemaker that's unsuccessfully grown it has been heartbroken. But it knows what it wants, and it only does well in those situations.
I've got to say, it instinctively makes it, like, endears me to Pinot Noir immediately.
An underdog.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like being really obtuse about how it exists.
But when it does well, it does very, very well.
It's just one of those varieties that like expresses its terroir like so blatantly. Like, because it is, as you say, like so finicky and so in tune to everything that's going on around it, it takes on like the sense of place so much more than like many other grapes.
Pinots, I mean, they grow Pinot all over the place. I mean, I've tasted some great examples from California, New Zealand actually is now making
I've had some nice New Zealand Pinot,
wicked Pinots as well. Australia's doing great, especially down like Adelaide way. But yeah, it's so picky, and it's only these really kind of perfect climates that it likes. It's like, it doesn't like Australia, it likes this tiny little bit in Adelaide Hills, and the wine is excellent, but you kind of move it further afield and it just gets a bit stroppy and doesn't want to do anything nice. And it's very, it succumbs to disease really quickly, so it's just a bit of a pain in the ass in general. But I think worth the toil.
Yeah, labor of love. 100%.
That's Pinot.
That's Pinot for you.
And that's Pinot.
Ooh.
Not a Pinot. It's a Sangiovese.
From Corsica.
From Corsica. So yeah, going a little bit out of the kind of norm of wine regions a little bit. I mean, Corsica have been making wine for yonks and are doing it very well. I think just we don't tend to see quite as much of it here.
That is stinky in a good way.
I mean, just gone a bit AWOL with this, so just wanted to get a little bit out of Burgundy and try something a little bit different, show some contrast.
Yeah, we're not in Burgundy anymore.
We're not in Kansas anymore.
No, Dorothy. And I really like this because I think that a lot of Corsican wines tend to have this kind of lightness and brightness. I would still drink this in the same way I drink a lot of Pinots, even though it's got a bit more chunk to it. And I just think it's really interesting. They have really similar soil types that travel through. So we're still on limestone and clay. So another great, different place. A lot's changing. still
Finally got
delicious.
some tannins.
Finally got some tannins.
Took us the 6th wine to get some tannins in. But
I,
they're still really,
I struggle a little bit with this wine. I think it's like, we were talking about it earlier, and I think with food, yes, on its own, I'm kind of outfunked by it a little bit, which is a shame because I'm super open-minded. I don't, I wouldn't necessarily rule something out because of that. But that kind of slightly vegetal thing that's going on, that's like almost like kind of like mold spores or like wet leaves. It
feels
for me
like
in the flavour, it is quite a lot like that, and I sort of don't want it. I feel like if I had something like pretty abrasive to like combat it with, then yeah. But
You'd want this with some stinky Iberico or something.
That's exactly what I said. Oh, actually, I said epoisse, like something like smelly and kind of loose.
For me, this feels like a roast dinner wine, not just because like I would obviously drink this with a roast dinner 100%, but also like you've got like you said, there's like vegetal notes, but also kind of like this really like chewy meatiness.
Definitely,
it is kind of like a roast dinner in a
yeah.
glass,
Well, we were
but
also
with
talking,
also nice.
We were also talking about goat because, in my opinion, goat tastes like its shit smells, which is the case with a lot of animals, to be honest. But it's got that real like farmy
You've
kind
been
of.
smelling too many animals' shit.
I mean, you know what goat shit smells like. We all do. We've all been to a farm.
I'm from London.
Please.
What's a goat?
But it's kind of.
I thought you meant the like
Greatest of all time.
greatest of all time. Yeah.
Well, this guy.
But something like that, braised, because I was, I was thinking about like, the wild herbs that you'd find in the mountains of Corsica, for instance, but a slow braise with goat, maybe in milk, so you get that kind of like slight kind of curdy, like richness. And obviously, because you're talking about a roasted meat, I think a slow roasted meat like that is ideal, because when it starts to fall apart and you're getting bits of fat and kind of soft and tendon, it's actually a nice thing. It's a little bit grim to think about in some ways, but also with this, something to actually like stand up against it. I think then it's different for me. But on its own, I'm not sure. It's not my vibe.
Would you say that this is like a food pairing wine, Holly? Because I'm enjoying it on its own.
I think it has places in both. I'm kind of with you. Generally, I'm a wine drinker, and something with lower tannins. I think as soon as tannins come into play, which they definitely do with this wine, I want a little snack.
You want a little snack?
I normally want a little snack.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I think a little bit of Serrano
Hello.
might be in order.
Thank you very much. That looks just the ticket. Because usually when people talk about like pairing wines with charcuterie, they usually go for like a very fruit forward, like low tannin wine. But I agree with you, like something like a little bit more serious like this deserves like a stinkier meat.
Yeah, it's that like fermentation funk that you get from cured meats that you kind of want to pair with the more animalistic nature of this wine.
Like the sinewy kind of like nature, like the tannins like immediately just like dissolve around it.
I mean, it goes back to what you were saying at the beginning. Like wine isn't supposed to be a singular thing. Like it's not all about wine. It's about wine and how it interacts with food and how that and people always ask me what my favorite wine is, and it's like, well, I don't know. What is the weather that day? What am I doing? Who am I with? What am I eating? Like all of these things impact what wine I want to drink, and there are wines for every occasion, and that's why we're so blessed there's such a variety.
Yeah, with exceptions, like even though I love Pinot Noir, if I'm having a shit day and I drink a Pinot Noir, that's not going to make me feel instantly better. It's like the memory. It's like you were talking about the memories and like those like sensual like memories that you have with like specific wines, but also specific bottles. That's what really makes wine for me. So it's like, it's like when you ask me what my favorite restaurant was, it's like trying to pick your favorite kid. Like sometimes I'm in the mood to go to Brat, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm in the mood to go to a pub and like order a yard sale pizza to it. Like,
Well, I mean, I would even go simpler than that, to be honest, because people always are like, they'll either say like, what kind of food you cook or what's your favorite thing to cook? And it's such a ridiculous question because, I mean, basically, I like eating, so I'll enjoy anything that I'm cooking because I'm about to eat it, really. But like the reality is that like the context of things, I mean, like if it's been raining and you've been cycling home, maybe you want to eat beans on toast, and there's absolutely nothing that could come close to it because you want shit bread and some melted butter and something out of a tin. You know, there's no effort there. It's actually a beautiful thing. So I do like the idea of like, again, coming back to this, like not not too rarefied an occasion for things, but actually just to enjoy them on the basis of just enjoyment, you know.
Oh man, that's well beautiful. I love that. That's so nice. It's so true though. It's all about those like sensual memory-linked experiences that you have with food and wine that like really make them come alive. Like if you were drinking like a bottle of wine in space with no one around you and like no sun and no good vibes and no music.
No Instagram.
No Instagram. How will I take my blurry portrait lens shots of my bottle with the top half blurred out?
You just get really drunk and put the camera close to your face. That's how it's supposed to happen always. That's how you do it, right? That's Instagram, I think.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah, that's it.
I think that was a really nice wine to end things off on. And it's been so nice having you here to share them with.
Thank you so much for having me.
Your wines were so excellent.
Oh, well, I'm very happy to be here and I'm really happy that we were able to taste some amazing wines from Emile. Shout out Emile. Like, nothing, yeah, there's nothing like breaking down like an amazingly complex region into its constituent parts and tackling it, because that's how you get into wine. That's how wine gets more accessible. But yeah, thank you so much for having me.